Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Sean. And on this episode, we have Cubs and Sox resuming play after the All-Star game. A little bit of a contract dispute with the Chicago Bears, and official signings for the Chicago Bulls. But first, as always, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? That means you get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable pricing. With tickets starting just single-digit dollars, fun for the whole family, and only 90 minutes from the city limits. Yeah, from the city limits, 90 minutes to Rockford, Illinois, you get to see the Ice Hogs play at the beautiful BMO Harris Bank Center. And this team just came off of a really fantastic year last year where they made the Calder Cup playoffs, and they just re-signed Mark McNeil, one of their top players as well. So head on over to icehogs.com, tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Get your tickets now for the start of the season in October. On this episode, it's going to be a short one because there's nothing really going on. This is like the deadest time of year for sports. Basketball, the majority of free agency is come and gone. Hockey, the majority of free agency is come and gone. Training camp hasn't started just yet. And baseball just coming back out of the All-Star break. So it's pretty not happening right now. So this will be a very quick show. So we're going to start with the Cubs, move to the Sox, and just dabble very briefly with the Bulls and the Bears. And we will call this a day and move on to next week. So our Cubs. We talked about it. This was two ways to look at the schedule starting the second half of the season. Well, I guess post All-Star game, because they started the All-Star game about 5, 6, 7 games after the halfway point. But whatever. Starting after the All-Star break, the Cubs, you could look at it as one of two ways. One, it was a terrible schedule because they're going to have to play the White Sox, the Mets, and the Rangers back to back to back. But the good news is, for all intents and purposes, these are all home games for the rest of the month. I think we talked about this last week, is they have the 3 games that were at home versus the Rangers, that they completed that series already. And then tomorrow they start a 3-game series against the Mets at home. They get a day off. Then they go to Milwaukee for 3 games, which is essentially a home game. Then they play 2 at the White Sox, which is essentially a home game as well because it's in the home city. And then they play 2 more at Wrigley. And then they play 3 in a row versus the Mariners in Chicago. So for all intents and purposes, and this is not a knock on anybody. It's just Milwaukee and U.S. Cellular Field are so close. Cubs fans travel really well, that those are easy places for them to travel. In fact, I know a lot of Cubs fans that would much prefer going to a Cubs game at Miller Park because A, there's parking, B, it's cheaper, C, it's easier to get tickets, and D, it's nice. Like, it's a nice weekend getaway because you get out of the city, you go up to Milwaukee, you can make a weekend of it. It's nice. And so that's like a weekend series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So don't be surprised if you don't see Cubs fans take Friday off of work and then go to all 3 games. So in one sense, it's nice because they're all essentially home games playing in front of a home crowd. But the bad news is there's some decent teams in there between the Mets, the White Sox, and the Rangers that it seems like you don't really catch a break. So let's start off with I guess we'll start with the All-Star game. All-Star game, although now we're not gonna cover this sport versus that sport because that's silly. But of the All-Star games, baseball's is clearly the most relevant of all. The NFL is, although NFL is king over all the other sports in the United States, the Pro Bowl is terrible, and I don't know anybody that watches it. It's just the most uninteresting thing. Nobody cares about it. Half the players that get picked for it don't even go. The NBA All-Star game is silly as well. It's just the rookie game is awful. I'm tired of watching the same slam dunk over and over. The game is just, I don't know. It's just not interesting to me. I love the NHL All-Star game, but it just really has no relevance, and not a lot of people watch it. I'm one of the few people that loves it. And baseball, though, the baseball All-Star game is probably the most watched of all of those, and it also has relevance because the league that wins the game gets home field advantage. So we now know that when the Cubs make it to the World Series, they will be the road dogs. So that was an important aspect. And then the only other relevant aspect was Chris Bryant hit a home run off Chris Sale in the first inning. Other than that, it was a boring game. But let's talk about the actual Cubs regular season games. So they started off the post All-Star game chased for the playoffs with 3 games against the Rangers. And the Rangers, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, without looking it up, I think they had the second best record in baseball going into the series. And the Cubs took 2 out of 3. Not bad. And the first game they started off with a 6-0 win on Friday against the Rangers with a brilliant performance by Kyle Hendricks. 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, no runs, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. And then to add a little sprinkle to that Sunday, C.J. Edwards, Travis Wood, Pedro Strop, and Justin Grimm came in to throw a combined 3 innings with 2 hits, no runs. So that was very good to see the bullpen come out and look strong like that. Addison Russell came in and looked good in the 5-hole, batted 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs in his 12th double of the year. Javi Baez added another double, continuing to hit really well with more at-bats. And the funny thing is to watch Kyle Hendricks, and Kyle Hendricks right now is the best pitcher on the Chicago Cubs. Does he have can he performances like Arrieta did for the past year? No. But the way Arrieta's pitching right now, the way Lester's pitching right now, the way Lackey and Hamill are pitching right now, Kyle Hendricks is the most consistent, best pitcher that the Cubs have. And if you take his starts out of the equation, is the Cubs' record is not nearly as good. He's a very good pitcher, and he has been holding this team together when there's been bad losing streaks. What you expected Arrieta to do is what Hendricks is doing. And there was a lot of people, myself included, who really questioned whether he belonged in this rotation and whether or not you wanted to add another starter to basically push him into the bullpen or back to Iowa. But he's looked fantastic, and it's just got to really rub having him pitch so well against the Texas Rangers has really got to rub them raw, because he's part of the package that the Cubs got for sending Ryan Dempster down to Texas. And Ryan Dempster didn't do well for them at all. did not perform well, and the Cubs ended up getting Kyle Hendricks, who's been a very good pitcher for them so far. But as far as the Cubs go, sure, they won 6-0, but it's not like they peppered a run here, peppered a run there. It's they explode for big innings usually, and this one is no different. In the 6th inning, they put 5 on the board, 5 out of their 6 runs, and there was some good and bad as far as the Cubs hitting. You starting to see some guys get warm in the bat. Hayward is hitting better, not great, but better. Rizzo's been on fire. Baez been hitting great. So you got guys that are actually starting to hit, and that's nice because that's when guys start hitting and the pitchers get back to where they should be. You're going to start seeing winning streaks again, which is absolutely what the Cubs need. But they're still, it's just, this Cubs team still has holes in their offensive roster. Like I said, they can put a big number on the board in one inning and then go the rest of the game with goose eggs. And that's not always great. I mean, it's great that you put up runs on the board, but you want to be able to manufacture runs even when you're not hitting well. And part of that is getting guys on base. So in this game, they got 5 walks and only 3 strikeouts. The walks, not bad. I'd like to see a few more walks, but it's not bad. But the 3 strikeouts was great because that's really where the Cubs' Achilles heel has been is striking out, especially last year. And they started working, or they got a lot better at it this year. It's starting to creep back up, especially with guys like Baez back in the lineup who are prone to strikeouts. But only 3 strikeouts in this game. But the big serious consideration, the thing to look at is they left 7 runners on base. And I know if you're got a lot of guys on base and you have a team with high on-base percentage, you're going to have more players left on base. But you should also be scoring more runs too. You can't, I mean, I get it, the law of averages is, when you get a lot more guys on base because you have high on-base percentages, you're going to leave more guys on base without scoring, but you should also be scoring a lot more runs too. And I know the Cubs are the highest scoring team, or maybe not, maybe the Red Sox are, but they're one of the highest scoring teams in baseball. But they need to capitalize on these because you can't lose games 3-2 or 2-1 or 4-3. You've got to be consistently at least putting up 4 runs in a game. That's what you need to do to really run home with this and be ready for playoff baseball. But 7 runners on base, you want to keep that to a much lower number. But at least the Cubs got that win, 6-0. And then Saturday, Cubs had a really nice win, a 3-1 win over the Rangers. And this was a great feeling as well because Hamill, who's notorious for having bad second halves of the season, came out after a few bad starts in a row to end the first half of the season, came out and pitched really well. He had another great performance, 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk. And somebody was asking about, apparently he claims it's a lot of cramping issues in the second half of the season, and he said that the doctor's nutritionist told him that he needed to have a saltier diet so he can retain water, so he's not cramping. So apparently he's been eating a lot of potato chips. Whatever the case may be, I don't care. I just want to see him be consistent in the second half like he is in the first half. Otherwise, the Cubs' rotation is going to be in trouble if you're trying to plug a hole at the end of the season because Hamill can't pitch anymore. And then another good outing is you have Adam Warren, Travis Wood, Hector Rondon, all combined for 3 innings of 0 hit, 0 run baseball with only 1 walk. Great, seeing the bullpen come through. But as in the last game where there were 7 runners left on base, this one the Cubs left 8 guys on base and had 12 strikeouts. They got the walks up to 6, but 12 strikeouts. Darvish was mowing guys down, and although he didn't have great command on his stuff, because they knocked him out in the fifth inning or fourth inning. I think the fifth inning. They knocked him out of the game, which is great because you want to get to that bullpen early. But Yu Darvish was mowing guys down, tons of strikeouts, and you need this team to cut down on those strikeouts, and you need them to be able to get better contact with top pitchers. Yu Darvish, when he's healthy, and this is his first start back from after an injury, and Yu Darvish is a very good pitcher. And today they played against Cole Hamel, who's another good pitcher, and they just don't do a lot versus these guys. Once you get into the playoffs, that's what you're going to see. You're not going to see back end of the rotation guys. You're going to be seeing Madison Bumgarner. You're going to see Clayton Kershaw's. You're going to be seeing, Strasburg's, and you're going to be seeing, the goofy looking guys from the Mets. I'm drawing a blank on their name because it's Sunday night and it's late. But you're not going to see powder puff pitchers. You're going to be seeing legitimate guys, and the Cubs need to be able to make contact and not strike out so much. They need to be getting on base and need to be consistent with that. You can't strike out 12 times and leave 8 guys on base. And sure, they won, but they only scored 3 runs. It was just a great pitching performance that kept them in this game. Anthony Rizzo continued being on fire. His 25th double of the season. It was, I believe, a 2-run jobber. And then you continue to see Matt Caesar and Tommy La Stella be important cogs to this team because these are guys that are able to start if need be. They'll come in and start multiple positions off no notice, just come in and start and play well. Or if they're sitting on the bench and don't play at all, they're fine. Or if they need to come in because of an injury or come in for a pinch hit, they come off the bench, no questions asked. And that's got to be a difficult thing. You think about it, is if you're playing the field, you keep in the game, you go up there for your at-bat, you're still part of the game. But when you come off the bench or you're a designated hitter, that's got to be hard because all you're doing is sitting there for half an hour at a time doing nothing, and then suddenly hey, I got to go up there and take a couple swings. That's got to be tough mentally to stay in the zone like that. I mean, I don't know if I could do it. And then moving on, let's talk about today's game. And the Cubs finally lost a game to the Texas Rangers, and I think this was the first time they faced Cole Hamel since he played for the Phillies and had no hitter against them, and that was one of Jake Arrieta's only losses. I think that was the game that started his streak of no losses for 24 straight games or whatever, because he had to pitch a great game that game, but Hamel's pitched a no-hitter, so it's hard to beat that. Today he came in there and just pitched a fantastic game. Cole Hamels, who I really, really wish the Cubs would have gone out and got. I think if you would have put him in there instead of Lackey, this team is just cruising. Lackey has been up and down all season, and he didn't have a bad game today, but Cole Hamels is a phenomenal pitcher. Today he had 8 innings pitched, 4 hit baseball, no earned runs, 7 strikeouts, and no walks. In fact, the Cubs didn't walk at all today. Not a single walk. Lackey pitched a good game today too, for the most part. Only 6 hits, gave up 4 earned runs, 1 home run, 8 strikeouts to 2 walks, 8 innings pitched, and then Clayton Richard came in to clean up with pitching in the 9th. Didn't give up any runs, so it was a fairly good pitching game, but it ended up being the Rangers were able to put a few on the board, and the Cubs just couldn't get anything going against Hamels. And that is, like I mentioned just a second ago, is what scares me, is because he's the type of guy you're going to see in the playoffs, and you got to be able to manufacture runs. You look at the Kansas City Royals, and they were able to pepper the Mets pitchers with hits and get on base, and even when they weren't getting good at bats, they were at least getting contact on the ball and putting the ball in play and And once the ball's in play, anything can happen. Today, nobody hit the ball well. You had a couple guys that got hits, Russell, Contreras, Bryant, Baez, but the Cubs combined for 4 hits and no walks, 10 strikeouts. That's not a good day at bat. And it's still tough because you don't have Dexter Fowler still. You have Albert Almora playing center, and Dexter Fowler is a huge cog in what the Cubs do. It really is. He's a cog in what the Cubs do. And Almora is a much better fielding center fielder, has a much better range. He's just a better all-around defensive player, better arm, everything. But as far as at-bat, that's where the Dexter Fowler's value comes into play. Like, he's a decent center fielder, but his bat is what brings the importance, because then it just sets he's your leadoff man, and it puts everything else in motion, and it goes from there. And just having him be lost for so many games, that it just they've definitely felt it, and can't wait for him to come back. And I think that was about it for the Cubs. It's 3 games back, and pitching has looked much better, but the hitting is still just not quite there. And facing the 3 games against the Mets, they're going to have to be able to play better. The pitching's going to have to step up a notch, and the hitting's going to have to step up a notch if they want to win this series, because the Mets have just spanked their butts since the playoffs started last year. Swept them in 4 games and then took a 4-game sweep here. So their Cubs it's a weird dynamic. During the season last year, I think the Cubs won 7 in a row against them, 7-0, and then now they're 0-8 versus them in the last 2 series. The Cubs really going to have to come out, and it's a psychological hurdle. Is you got to be able to beat the Mets. They beat you in the playoffs, and you haven't been able to beat them since in 4 games. You've got to come out on your home turf and be able to win this one. So we'll have a lot of opinions coming next week about the Cubs-Mets series. That'll be the biggie for us. And then moving on to the White Sox. The start of the post-All-Star game has had some big ups and downs for this team. Some of the downs are they're starting 0-3. And to add insult to injury is they're absolutely not hitting. But the good news is Carson Fulmer finally got into he was brought up last week, and they finally gave him some time in the real game, and they finally scored a run post All-Star game, because they got shut out in the first 2 games. So let's talk about those really quickly. Friday, White Sox lost 7-0 to the Angels. Miguel Gonzalez didn't look so great. 6 innings pitched, 3 earned runs. I guess not so bad, but Santiago from the Angels. Now take a step back. He is not a good pitcher. He's got almost a 4.5 ERA on the season, but he comes in against the White Sox and pitched 7 innings of 5-hit baseball, no walks, 7 strikeouts. That's the performance. The White Sox just streaky hitting. They don't walk. So of course, if you have a guy throwing strikes and you're not hitting them, it's going to be a tough afternoon. You saw it, 7 strikeouts and no walks. And then you have Saturday's game, and this was the heartbreaker. You have James Shields on the mound, and you have no idea what to expect. And I'm going to read you the stat line real quick. This is James Shields' stat line. 8 innings pitched, which is a complete game. The Angels didn't have to bat in the 9th. So he pitched a complete game, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. If I were to tell you that was going to be James Shields' stat line, complete game, 2-hitter with 1 earned run, you'd be like, oh yeah, really like the White Sox chances of winning that game. Nope, they lose 1-0. The opposing pitcher, Schumacher, who's got over a 4 ERA on the season, he throws a complete game as well, with 13 strikeouts and 0 walks. 13 strikeouts, 0 walks. That's back-to-back games that the White Sox didn't have a walk. Back-to-back games without a walk. Like, that's bad. You can't do that. And they didn't, in those first 2 games, not a run, not a walk. That's just bad news. And then they come out Sunday to try to at least take one game in this series, and they just get trounced again, 8-1. Jacob Turner finally gets a start here, and he just blows a gasket. 4 innings pitched, 8 runs on 7 hits. 8 runs on 7 hits. Walks 3, strikes out 2, gave up 2 home runs with an 18 ERA on the season. Jacob Turner. And you had Albert Pujols 2 home runs in the game. It's the White Sox. They have a good roster. It's just like they can't put it together. They can't get it together. The pitching staff is good and the hitting can't hit. The hitting's fine, but the pitchers can't get anybody out. The bullpen blows games. And the White Sox can't walk to save their life. At least they finally scored their first run and got their first walk of this whole series. 3-game series. They draw 1 walk, score 1 run. It's just bad. Adam Eaton gets the sole RBI in this whole series. And again, they didn't. This was the stat line for Weaver from the Angels. 7 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, and he's a guy with an over 5 ERA on the season. So you didn't face their aces. You had a guy with a 4.5 ERA, a guy with a 4 ERA, and a guy with a 5 ERA, and you scored a combined 1 run against all 3 of those guys. And they just beat your butt in strikeouts. The White Sox just they can't put it all together. It's just not working well. So we'll have to keep an eye on this, because at least you've got the top of the rotation starting to come in the next series, and maybe that'll turn things around, because the White Sox, they can't go on a losing streak to start the second half of the season. They need to start strong if they want to have any sort of playoff contention at all. And then we're just going to wrap it up. See, not much talk baseball. Blackhawks had their convention this weekend. No big news out of it. I didn't attend this year. But if anything does come out, I will make sure to report it. But it's just quiet. There's a lot of hockey talk, and not a lot of letting the players' personality shine. Just a lot of just hockey talk, which is not nearly as fun. I love hockey, but I also love the personality that the hockey players have and they bring to the team to make this special kind of team. And then I guess we'll talk about the one Bears point. Is Friday at 3 o'clock was the deadline for players that were franchise tagged in the NFL to have a long-term deal ironed out, or else they have to play on the franchise tag. And the Bears, they basically held all the cards in this. Of course, Alshon Jeffrey wants to get a long-term deal done. He wants the financial security. He wants to get the big money. And that way, if he gets hurt or his career never takes off after this, or whatever the case may be, that he's already paid. Now, the Bears, on the other hand, want him to prove it. So I'm not in the negotiations. The negotiations aren't public. Neither side was talking. But this is based on everything that happened and the results and such. This is almost assuredly what happened. Is Alshon Jeffrey's team, his agent, and him, they came forward and said, hey, we want a long-term deal. And the Bears said, so do we. And Alshon's people said, we're looking for this number. And the Bears said, no, we're going to offer this much lower number. And Alshon's people were like, no. And the Bears basically said, well, this is it, take it or leave it. Because if you're the Bears, you don't want to lock this guy up for huge money if he can't be healthy on the field. When Alshon's healthy on the field, he's a really, really good football player and makes the other people around him better and makes his offense better when he was on the field. But he has a lot of soft tissue injuries, and those are frustrating. And he didn't show up to the optional camp days. He didn't do any. He didn't work out with his teammates. He worked out on his own. And those are all things when you're like ownership and you're the general manager and the coaching staff, that's frustrating to you. Why would you want to give up a long-term deal to this guy when you don't know what condition he's in? You don't know what his workout regimen's like. You don't know if he's going to be healthy, and you have the option of giving him this one-year deal. And if he stinks this year, you can let him go and have that extra money next year. Whereas if you sign him to a long-term deal and he's bad, he's on the books. He's kind of stuck for a couple of years until it becomes affordable to cut him or trade him. And that's the way they look at it is, well, prove it. Prove you're worth this giant deal that you want. We're willing to pay you, but you have to prove that you can be on the field and you're going to perform well. And so they have this option, and Alshon didn't want the terms that the Bears offered. And so he's going to have to play this 1 year under the franchise tag, which is $14-some million, which is really good money. I would take this in a heartbeat. But if you're Alshon Jeffrey and you see some other guys that are getting $50 million guarantees, makes $14 million look like chump change. So he's going to have to play this entire season on the franchise tag, and coming next year, it's going to be the same exact issue. If the Bears are going to try to do a long-term deal, and it's going to come down to what happens this year. If he can't stay on the field and he's not healthy, the Bears are probably, I'm going to imagine they'll put a tag on him and then try to trade him. Because what happens is if you put a franchise tag on him, it's just really prohibitive. There's so many first-round picks involved with signing away. But if you put the franchise tag on him and then you initiate a trade, you can take less than the mandatory, but then you have the say of who he goes and what you get for him. So look for them to tag if he performs awfully this year or he just is not healthy. Look for the Bears to tag him and then try to trade him away, or try to sign him to a long-term deal. My only concern is players that have to play over and over and over on the franchise tag tend to get bitter towards the team that do it because they want that security. I know Walter Jones from Seattle, left tackle, I think he played 3 consecutive years on franchise tags. And Drew Brees in New Orleans, he played, I believe, 3 years on a franchise tag as well before they got a deal done. So it does happen. You just don't like to see it happen. You'd rather have, it's better for the team to be able to spread that cap out, that cap hit for the signing bonus and the salary. Be able to spread that out as best you can using the cap rules. And it's better for the player too, because he's got that financial security knowing that money's guaranteed. No matter what happens, he's got that guaranteed money. So Alshon, it's going to be a prove-it year for him. And in a contract year last year, he didn't prove it. So we'll see what he does this year. And then finally, we're going to wrap this up, this short show, with Chicago Bulls. Again, we're in the offseason. They made the Dwayne Wade signing official. When we reported it before, it was just pending a physical past. He's a Chicago Bull. All said and done. So nothing crazy there. But the Bulls are in the Summer League right now, and they are undefeated at 5-0. And their last game, which brought them to 5-0, was against the Washington Wizards that was yesterday, Saturday. Bobby Portis led the way to an 88-85 victory. Portis had 17 points and 9 rebounds. Denzel Valentine, the Bulls' first-round draft pick, who officially signed on Saturday, finished with a double-double, 14 points, 10 rebounds. Nice to see that. Jaron Grant also helped with 8 points and 8 assists. Nice to see. And Spencer Dinwiddie scored 11 points. So now in the Summer League, the Bulls will play the winner of the Cavaliers-Nets game, which was tonight. I don't know if this game's over or not. I didn't look. In the semifinal of the Summer League playoffs. So it's nice to see the young kids for the Bulls be able to play well and compete with the others in the league. Now we just need to get some superstars on this team to help them out as well and have a nice blend here. But we have what we have. So I guess that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I know that that there was not much here, but we also didn't have much. It's quiet in all of the Chicago sports. And I believe I had some questions, but I had some computer problems this week, so I haven't been able to get to those. Questions will be answered from this week, will be answered next week. I apologize for that. If you guys have questions, please hit me up on Twitter at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, or SwerskiSports.com, which has all of our contact information. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you hit subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, however you're listening, and share with your friends. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7.
the Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.